Hello and welcome back to Nintendo November, Mario Edition, the series where each week I'm dedicating the videos to exploring a handful of games in each of Mario Friends' history. This week we're going to be dedicating it to Yoshi, and what better place to start than the eponymous game in his catalog, Yoshi, for the NES. Let's get started. I've said this a number of times, and I'm sure I'll say it again, but puzzle games really aren't my kind of thing. That being said, if the puzzle game has something incredibly cool or unique about it, or is open to beginners like me, I can definitely get down with a puzzle game and even find myself playing them for extremely long periods of time, which honestly I'll be able to mostly get into tomorrow's episode. But while we're here, talking about the first Yoshi game, let's get into more detail. I think even for NES standards, this game looks incredibly primitive. Mario looks like something's going on with him. His model is just so funny because his face looks so unbelievably awkward. The base mechanics of this game are pretty cool though, having to either match two or more of the same enemy, or having to line up the eggs to clear away your plates. It was this mechanic that was the most interesting thing to play around with, because not only do you have to time it out how to not make the enemies go away, while also not piling it too high and running the risk of losing. On top of that, there's also the idea of how often it spawns both the bottom and top halves of the egg. It's a really good balancing act, and added such depth into the relatively simple concept for a puzzle game. I really liked the music, as I tend to in 8-bit. It wasn't anything amazing, but it was very good background track to just turn off your brain and focus on the game. I liked the Fire Flower one the most, which was the middle option, but all of the tracks were solid enough. I didn't particularly see too much of a difference between A game and B game. I think one was stage-based and one was endless, but I sucked at this game bad enough to not last long enough in either mode to try it out. Which honestly is very mean, is true to most puzzle games I play. I have no idea what this game had to do with Yoshi, beside him hanging out on the side, but I did have fun with it regardless. I could definitely see myself popping this in every now and again to play for a bit, whenever I'm bored, instead of something like scrolling through Instagram. There's something quite special about the simple side of NES puzzlers, and I'm happy to finally add this one to my list. Have you played Yoshi? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe while you're down there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Hello and welcome to Nintendo November, Mario Edition, a series where I'm dedicating each week to a different one of Mario's Friends game series. This week we're dedicating to Yoshi, and today we're talking about Yoshi's second puzzle outing on the NES and Game Boy, Yoshi's Cookie. Let's get started. Whereas I thought that Yoshi was an okay NES puzzler, Yoshi's Cookie somehow fully captivated me. I could not for the life of me put this game down, and even when I went to record footage for this episode, I found myself accidentally playing 3 hours of the game in one sitting, and leaving this script half written. There was just something about how addictive the gameplay was that I'm not even sure I can explain. The colors are so incredibly vibrant and full, so much better than the first game in this series. Chef Mario in the corner is also so cute, and I love this sprite of Mario as a whole. I will say that this game made even less sense as a Yoshi game, as the only involvement of Yoshi in this game was the fact that a Yoshi head would come down and act as a wild card whenever you collect enough of one certain type of cookie. I have to wonder why they dedicated this as a Yoshi game at all. Nintendo probably just figured that Yoshi was their puzzle mascot for the NES and Game Boy. I do like the art that they made for the packaging of Yoshi eating the cookie though. The music in this game has the same kind of vibe that I described in the last video. It wasn't anything brilliant by any means, but I did really like it, and it was nice background music to just turn your brain off and play a puzzle with. I didn't really have a favorite of the 3 options, they were all fairly solid tracks. The gameplay was simple, but also had quite a bit of strategy to it. You could either focus on making sure the verticals were lined up, or the horizontals were lined up. But you also have to make sure, no matter which one you're focusing on, to also balance it, as occasionally it'll put more on one side or the other. If you don't have it somewhat organized, or know your next move, you can fall behind super fast, and fail pretty quickly. I cannot express just how unbelievably addicted I became to this gameplay loop. I could easily go for hours. If you have the means to play this game, you absolutely should. It's one of those games that you've barely heard about, but is so much fun when you try it. And just so I'm clear on the legal side, it's definitely not super easy to find this somewhere on the internet to play on your heart's content. I don't know anything about that, Nintendo. What did you think of Yoshi's Cookie? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe while you're down there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Hello and welcome back to Nintendo November, Mario Edition. the month where I'm dedicating each week to another one of Mario's many friends. This week, we're exploring Yoshi games, and today specifically, we're talking about one of the greatest platformers of all time, Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island. Let's get started. Now obviously the Super Mario World title is just for marketing, but I felt it was important to at least say it once, because it's an interesting aspect to this game that I feel like people forget about. That aside, this is far from the only interesting thing about this game, as the whole game is an experience. I grew up owning the GBA port of this game, and as I got older and could actually understand how to play platformers without dying every 6 seconds, I really appreciated this game. For this video I played the original SNES version, but even just playing the first world over again triggered so much nostalgia for me. I was really happy to revisit the game, and it's a big reason I decided to play in this Yoshi week, so I could make a video about this game specifically. I absolutely love this game, top to bottom. Yoshi has always been really good at having great art styles, and the coloring book / crayon style that this game totes is no different to that sentiment. Everything is just so unbelievably adorable here, and all of the characters and enemies look so cute and clean. The levels are varied and detailed, with my favorite being the castle levels for sure. I really like some of the gimmicks in these levels, like the falling walls. The bosses are basic by nature, being only standard at game enemies, but even making them large and giving them some new moves already makes them super interesting in my book. I personally really like the boss from World 1, where you have to split him into smaller goo droplets and take care of those before breaking him up further until he's tiny. It's just a really creative way to change this already existing enemy into something that could be a boss fight. Obviously, one of the biggest things I can say here is the music is phenomenal. I regularly listen to this soundtrack casually, and I absolutely love all of the memes that span from it with certain tracks on the OST. Nothing can beat the title screen music for me, but this whole soundtrack is something that I can absolutely listen to on repeat all the time. If I did have one complaint about this game at all, it's the one I feel like every other person would agree with me on. Whenever you get hit, Baby Mario falls off your back, floating off into a bubble. When this happens, the cries from the depths of hell interrupt your amazing OST and do not stop until you can pop this baby's bubble. The crying is so unbelievably annoying, and as someone who is not overly skilled in platformers and got hit a lot on the harder levels, I had to mute my game on certain levels for fear of going absolutely insane because he's just that annoying. Yoshi's Island is required reading for anyone who enjoys Nintendo games. It's the route of many of Nintendo's 2D platformer series would go for decades to come and can still be felt today. Just don't play any of the sequels, unfortunately. Neither of them managed to capture the same magic that this one did, but I will eventually cover those games in time for this channel, maybe next Nintendo November. What did you think of Yoshi's Island? Have you played it? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe while you're down there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Hello and welcome to Nintendo November Mario Edition, the month where I'm dedicating each week to one of Mario's many friends. This is Yoshi Week, and we're discussing one of his more forgotten entries, Yoshi's Story, on the N64. Let's get started. I've had no experience with this game. I owned a copy for years, gifted to me by one of my best friends. However, I've never gotten around to actually playing it, so this was a brand new experience for me. I always hear people talk about Island, and then I feel like the conversation kind of shifts right to Woolly World, with maybe a few mention of the Island sequels here and there. But Story is one of those games that people don't ever really talk about, so I didn't even really know anything about this game going into it. The game is just as adorable as Island. It's the same kind of crayon art style, but with a lot of construction paper and cardboard aesthetics tossed in there to fill in the new 3D space. I will say that it's not as stylized as Island was, but I know that was mostly due to hardware limitations, and as previously stated, it's still rather adorable. I think this kind of style matches something like Kirby 64, which I would classify both of them on the line of 2.5D instead of a full 3D. The biggest change to this game though is the way the levels are structured. Instead of being linear levels with an ending like a lot of the other games, this game runs on the basis of collecting 30 fruits, all of which are strewn about the level in an extremely, and I cannot stress extremely enough, light Metrovania style, just without having to worry about getting specific power-ups. I really liked this way of doing things. It's a type of level design I feel like I've never seen before or since, at least in the games I've played. The other difference to this game than others is the level order. Instead of going from level 1 in a world to whatever level is last, Yoshi's Story has you finish one level in one world, then the next level jumps to the next world. This was a really good choice because not only does it help tie completely into the book concept, but it also makes it so that all of the levels stay fresh. It can get boring sometimes, doing the same level theme for however many levels, say something like New Super Mario Bros., and a concept like this helps alleviate that, as you can constantly be moving to whatever's next. I'm happy that this game was good. This era of games can be hit or miss, as a lot of companies were still trying to figure out 3D technology, and a lot of franchises did not adapt very well in that process. I know where Yoshi got to, and we'll talk about that tomorrow, but it's good to know that he had a good start too. Have you played the Yoshi story? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe while you're down there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Hello and welcome back to Nintendo November Mario Edition, the month where I'm dedicating entire weeks to some of Mario's many friends. We're at the end of Yoshi Week, and today we're talking about one of the most adorable Yoshi games, Yoshi's Woolly World for the Wii U. Let's get started. I was an enormous fan of Kirby's Epic Yarn, beating the entire thing in one sitting. And although I picked up what could be considered the sequel to this title, Woolly World, a few years ago, as many of my other titles that I pick up randomly, haven't picked it up properly to play it until the recording of this video. This game is drop dead gorgeous. Every little bit of this game, top to bottom, has so much love put into it. The way that all of Yoshi elements have been brought into this style was masterful, and all of the little details put in here and there is just the cherry on top. Stuff like little fishing lines holding up the wooden platforms, or the unwrapping animation when you get the presents. There's clearly just so much care put into this game. I love when the worlds are revealed through pulling a tablecloth off of them. It really sells the whole diorama idea. I also really loved tying the Yoshi skins to the collectibles in the level, having to knit back together your friends so you can play as them by finding their pieces around the level is really cool, and adds a big reason to want to collect things. I always appreciate when a game gives you a really good incentive to actually want to explore and collect the things they give you to. By and large, this game is pretty much a remake of Yoshi's Island, but in this yarn style. A lot of the bosses are the same, a lot of the level structures and gimmicks are copied or really close, but honestly I feel like this is more than okay. It's clear it's not a one-to-one copy, obviously, and a lot of the Yoshi games share the same elements. But I thought it was worth mentioning here as I found it interesting, having played Island within a few days of each other, so the ideas were fresh in my mind. The music to this game is amazing. It's the best to turn your brain off and just relax music I've heard in a while, mixing in elements of pop and country and everything in between. I love that every level or even room within a level can have a different style and vibe, but all of them still maintain one clear cohesion to each other, so nothing ever feels super jarring. It was funny to see the badge system here. It's almost exactly like the Super Mario Wonder one, except instead of them being a built-in thing, this game has you pay for your use of the badges, so you have to debate whether the reward of the badges is worth the gems that you've collected in the level. Although I didn't seem to find any other major use for the gems, I suppose there's less of an issue in using them here if you're having trouble in certain levels. Some of these badges are super helpful and can absolutely help, but others are more just for fun. I think they found a good balance between these two. This was just as good as Epic Yarn for me. This I believe is one of the magnum opuses of the Yoshi series, and it's a shame knowing what the reputation is for the game that came after this, another one I think I'm going to have to cover at some point. It's a shame that this was not one of the games that made its way over to the Switch, as it absolutely needed to, especially since just about every single other Wii U exclusive made its way there. If you can find a way to play this, you absolutely should. With that being said, have you played Yoshi's Woolly World? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe while you're down there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Hello and welcome back to Nintendo November Mario Edition, the month where I'm dedicating every week to a different one of Mario's many friends. This week, we're focusing on Donkey Kong, and what better place to start than the very beginning? Donkey Kong for arcades. Let's get started. What is there to be said about this game that hasn't been said already? There's something special about going back to these kinds of arcade games years and years later, especially with a franchise like Mario and Donkey Kong, so you can super easily see the evolution of these characters. I've had the luxury of playing both the original Donkey Kong arcade cabinet, as well as the version on the NES, which is the version you're seeing now on screen. I've played this game a whole bunch off and on over the years, and in my personal opinion, the original Donkey Kong is one of those that's forever timeless. having aged incredibly well regardless of future iterations on the concept and the limitations at the time. For those who don't know, the original Donkey Kong cabinet started life as a Popeye the Sailor game, which had to be switched at the last minute. Mario/Jumpman was Popeye, Donkey Kong was Bluto, and the lady, later known as Pauline, was Olive Oil. It's super funny knowing all of that after the fact, because all of the designs of these characters, at least in their original form, make way more sense when you put it into that context. It's really funny to think of what would become of all of these characters, having really outlived Popeye himself, and all of it was made as a last-minute switch-around. I really enjoy this game. It's simple and short, being only 3 levels, but it gets progressively harder the more loops of the game you manage to complete. I personally have done 3, but this was also with minor reliance on rewind features. I'm sure I couldn't possibly get that far in the original arcade cabinet, although I did get through 1 loop playing with no modern features. The game isn't necessarily hard, at least at first, but it definitely has some of that arcade quarter muncher jank, the kind of stuff they put in for you to pay them more money if you ran out of lives. It's nothing nearly as bad as other games of its time, but it's for sure still there. There isn't really much else to say about the game as a whole. I knew this was going to be a shorter episode because it's such a simple game, but I felt it important that for a Donkey Kong week, and on a larger scale doing a Nintendo November, I had to look at the place where one of the biggest franchises started. Donkey Kong is a fun, simple arcade game. What did you think of Donkey Kong? Which version have you played? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe while you're down there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Hello and welcome back to Nintendo November Mario Edition, the month where I'm dedicating each week to a different one of Mario's many friends. This week is Donkey Kong week, and today we'll be looking at the game that brought us the character Nintendo tries to forget exists. This is Donkey Kong Jr. Let's get started. Donkey Kong Jr. is surprisingly different from the original Donkey Kong. It's still a skill-based platformer. Instead of making your way up girders, dodging barrels, you're instead climbing up ropes, dodging animals being thrown at you. But I would say the biggest twist here is the fact that, for one of the first and only times, Mario is the villain. Which is crazy, because knowing modern Nintendo, they would never let anything like that happen ever again. It's one of the reasons I like to go back to the classics and early arcade games, because there was something so nice about how much Nintendo was willing to experiment with these characters back before they were established as some major mega brand that needs to be brand compliant on every single entry. DK Jr. has the same gameplay loop as its predecessor, in that there are only 4 levels, and once you finish, you're looped back to the first level, and the enemies and obstacles get harder or more frequent with every loop you complete. I would argue that this game is a lot harder, especially for me. Those creatures that Mario throws out that climb up and down the ropes are just really annoying, especially in levels like the ones where you're pushing the keys up to free Donkey Kong. Those chompers get super annoying and almost always plant themselves in such a way that makes completing the level near impossible, especially in later loops when they're more likely to show up and they move faster. Beyond that though, I liked the additional strategy that came with paying attention to which side of the rope you're sticking out on, because for almost every one of the levels it does matter, and you'll die quickly if you aren't paying attention. Yeah, it's a pretty simple thing, but it adds another thing to pay attention to, other than just jumping over barrels. This game is a great sequel, keeping a lot of the same concepts while evolving all of them quite significantly. It's a shame Donkey Kong Jr. went missing in action, although it would be kind of fun if they did another game in this style with Diddy Kong, if they insist on replacing him completely. This, like the game before it, is definitely one I pop in every so often, and is really fun and addicting game once you get into it. Have you played Donkey Kong Jr.? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe while you're down there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Hello and welcome back to Nintendo November Mario Edition, the month where I'm dedicating each week to a different one of Mario's many friends. This is Donkey Kong week, and today we're covering one of the most important games on the SNES, Donkey Kong Country. Let's get started. I had played a bit of this in the past, but did not get very far. It was a great game, but there were a lot of other things that I wanted to play at the time. But for this video, I was finally able to sit down and actually play through more of the game, and I'm glad I did. This game is super impressive for its time. The graphics are amazing for the SNES, and because of that, it feels like it hasn't aged a day, and looks just as good as a lot of its modern contemporaries. The art style is so clean and fun, and everything looks like it was hand-painted. I will say that some of the earlier levels feel really basic, but as the game progresses and more things are added to the mix, it all gets so much more varied and fun. I'm a particular fan of the barrel launching levels and the minecart ones. Every single level has so much to explore, there are hidden things in every corner. Whether that be finding a wall that needs to be smashed by the animal companions, or a specific place you need to launch yourself off of in the barrels. It was just super fun to explore every corner of the levels and get all of the Kong letters and maximize banana profits. The whole Kong family is really fun, and it's no surprise at all that these characters had such a lasting impact and stuck around for so many years. Even if you just encounter them briefly on the map in passing, they all have such well fleshed out personalities. I love the Kong family so much. The controls to this game are super simple, but incredibly polished. There were a few times where I noticed the jumps were a little weird and awkward, like if I pressed the button just a tad too late and it wouldn't register. But by and large, I had no problem with any of the moves or controls. This is one of gaming's greats. This game is to Donkey Kong as Yoshi's Island was to the Yoshi series, in that it influenced so much of both the series it came from and the gaming landscape as a whole. I'm happy to finally play such an influential game, and you should absolutely too if you can find the ability to. Have you played Donkey Kong Country? What did you think? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe while you're down there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Hello and welcome back to Nintendo November Mario Edition, the month where I'm dedicating each week to one of Mario's many friends. This is Donkey Kong Week, and today we're talking about DK's grand return to the mainstay series, Donkey Kong Country Returns. Let's get started. I had played a few levels of this game a number of years ago out of curiosity, but didn't get more than halfway through World 1. Something about the game just didn't click with me. I decided to pick it up again for this series so I could see if a few years gaming experience could make a game hit me any different than it did the first time. The final verdict was that this game has a lot of good parts to it, but still is not all that great. There's a lot to be said about how well the original Donkey Kong Country formula is translated into this game. Just like I said in my DKC video yesterday, there are small secrets and things to discover around every corner of the levels. I particularly liked features like having to slam the cannons to make things happen in World 2. There are just so many fun things to discover, and I appreciate that in a way this makes the levels more replayable if you happen to not get all of the collectibles your first time through. The one thing I do really like about this game is the way that the health bar is handled, both with yourself and the partner mechanic. Instead of your partner disappearing in one hit, then you die with one hit. Instead, both you and your partner have 2 hearts, with the opportunity to add more using power-ups purchased from Cranky. I think this was a perfect way to make it slightly more fair, without completely losing the challenge or making it feel too easy. Speaking of the partner, I like that Diddy has a bigger use in this game than he does in the original game, giving you a bit of a hover move that really helped in a lot of situations. I will say, a small bit of the magic was lost in the world map in this game. There was something so good about physically seeing DK and Diddy walk to each level, and having the level be blended into the actual scenery. The simple level select where it was just pictures of the two wasn't as special, and the levels themselves on the world map did not blend in as seamlessly. Now to address the elephant in the room, the motion controls. I've heard a ton of people complain about these, and when I first tried to play the game a couple years ago I agreed. However, now that I took some time to play more of the game, I get used to how the controls work, and I now completely disagree. Yeah, they're a little annoying, but of all the ridiculous gimmicks that Nintendo has been trying to shove into everything for years, this was fairly basic. It actually felt fairly satisfying to smash and bang into the ground and see everything shake and rumble, and in a lot of places make things happen within the level. I personally have nothing wrong with the control scheme here, and I don't really see why anyone chooses to complain about it. I just choose to see the fun in it. Although I wasn't as big of a fan of this game as the original Donkey Kong Country, I definitely think this is a good game overall. It still had all of the elements of DKC in there, and I commend Retro for translating them over so well. Tomorrow we'll be looking at the sequel everyone claims is the best in the franchise, and although I have played it before, I'm excited to give it another round for the week. What did you think of Donkey Kong Country Returns? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe while you're down there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Hello and welcome to Nintendo November Mario Edition, the month where I'm dedicating each week to one of Mario's many friends. This is Donkey Kong Week, and today we're talking about what is considered the best DK game, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. Let's get started. Now, I had played a good chunk of this game in the past, but like a lot of the games I played down the line, it just got lost in the shuffle of new releases. I was excited to go back to this game and play some more of it. There's a lot of reputation behind this game, and although I don't remember much about my original playthrough, I can say after this one, I agree with the general sentiment. First things first, and although it feels small and it matters to me, they fixed my note from Returns. I was disappointed in Returns that DK and Diddy didn't actually physically move along the world map. Well, I must not have been the only one that thought that way, because here in Tropical Freeze, DK and friends are back and walking around the map. It's a small detail, but it really adds to the overall vibe and care put into the game and makes the world map feel more alive. The controls in this game are more or less the same as the last entry, except the obvious exclusion of motion controls. Now, I said in my last video that I felt in the minority in saying that I actually did not mind the motion controls in Returns, and now after losing them, I'm confident in that opinion. Doing DK's slam moves in the level to break things and trigger things in Tropical Freeze just doesn't feel as powerful doing it with the buttons instead of the motion controls. This game did feel a lot more challenging than Returns though, but nothing too terrible. A lot of it is compensated by how tight and easy to control the game is. The partner mechanic got an upgrade in this one, and honestly, as good as Diddy still is in this game, he pales in comparison to his friend Dixie, who is easily the best companion to use in these levels. She essentially acts like Yoshi's Flutter Jump, giving you the same hover as Diddy, while also giving you the final updraft boost at the end. It came in so handy on so many levels. I personally didn't find any really good use for Cranky though, and I tried to avoid him as much as humanly possible in the levels, as his downward cane move can be useful in theory. I just don't believe that the levels were built at all to be boosted downward that fast. Dixie all the way. This game is gorgeous. There are so many levels that just look so good, especially some of the underwater levels with the darkness overlay. It's just so calming, and I loved having so much of that come in World 4. I also felt the minecart levels were taken up a notch, and I was happy to see that because that tends to be my favorite levels in these games. Some of the bosses were annoying, but I thought they were at least all creative and were just as cared for as the regular levels themselves. This game overshadows its predecessor by a long shot. Returns was good, but this was the perfection of this formula for the Country series. It's a shame that as of right now this is Donkey Kong's latest game, because it feels like they got it exactly right and were ready to make more. I know we're getting the HD remake of Returns sometime next year, and Retro is releasing Prime 4 next year too. I hope those two things together lead to Rare returning to the country on whatever console Nintendo's got cooking up next. What did you think of Tropical Freeze? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe while you're down there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Hello and welcome back to Nintendo November Mario Edition, the month where I'm dedicating each week to a different one of Mario's many friends. This is the week of Luigi, and we're kicking things off today with one of his flagship titles, New Super Luigi U. Let's get started. I had gotten the combo pack of both this game and Mario U on disc with the Wii U my parents had gotten me for Christmas. I worked my way through Mario U in time, but never really ventured into the Luigi side of things. I had heard the reputation that this game had of its difficulty, and knowing that high difficulty isn't typically my thing, I decided to skip it for the time being. Then came time for this week of Luigi, and it's finally time to face my fears and try this game out. This game is so much fun. Yes, it is difficult, but it's one of those types of difficulties that feel super fun, and is one of those scenarios where any mistake made always feels like your fault and not the game's. It did take some time to get used to Luigi's physics, but once it clicked, it really clicked, and the chaos that ensues is so unbelievably fun. The idea to make the new Super Mario formula into 40 to 50 second condensed levels just fits so well into this kind of level design, and creates such an interesting dynamic in the levels where you try and collect and see everything, but the game is actively making sure you keep moving. I do wish, however, the sentiment went into the boss fights. For some reason, the levels are all completely redone and brand new, but the line they decided to draw was weirdly enough not making any new boss fights. It's the same slow boss that requires 3 hits, nothing new from Mario U. This even included the stressed time limit, because no matter what, you walk into the boss and immediately gain 100 more seconds. I just have to wonder why this is the one part of the game they decided not to touch. There isn't really anything to say about the graphics or music. They are exactly the same as all of the other new Super Mario Bros. Games, which means that although they are nice and there isn't anything wrong with it at a base level, they are entirely bland and nothing really stands out as good or bad. It just is. You'll get really tired of the overworld music super quickly, but that too is the same idea as all the other new Soup games. I'm happy with the release of Wonder that they decided to move away from this art style because it really is the white bread of video game graphics. This sentiment also goes along with the world types, which are so simple and basic, I can't really muster anything of value to say about them. This game is a really fun experience. It's a nice refresh on the new Soup formula, and it's a nice challenge for those that found the base games too easy. I wish Nintendo would try more things like this sometimes, because when they do, they almost always tend to create something really fun and intriguing. This game really gave off baby's first Kaizo vibes, and I love to see Nintendo embrace something like that because they almost never do. Have you played New Super Luigi U? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe while you're down there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Hello and welcome back to Nintendo November Mario Edition, the month where I'm dedicating each week to a different one of Mario's many friends. This is the week of Luigi, and today we're looking at one of the weirder Luigi games, a modded version of the original Mario Brothers, Luigi Brothers. Let's get started. Now, you may immediately be saying that you have no idea what I'm talking about. Well, Mario Bros. Was the very first Mario game, even before Super Mario Brothers, the one everyone knows. The object of the game is super simple. You jump onto the platforms that the enemies are on, and then jump up and kick them away. Rinse and repeat. I used to play this game a lot when I was a kid because I had the GBA port of Yoshi's Island, and Mario Bros. Was included in all of the Super Mario Advance titles, as well as Superstar Saga. All of this long-winded explanation is to say that Luigi Brothers is a version of that game, but instead of Mario, you're playing as Luigi, and they've added in Luigi's physics. The way you play this game is to get a copy of Super Mario 3D World. There are two ways of obtaining the game within 3D World. You either beat the game and then it unlocks, or it's unlocked from the get-go if you've already got a save file for New Super Luigi U on your Wii U. As far as I'm aware, this game is also included in the Switch port and it's just immediately unlocked. I will say, all of this effort to get this game is very much not worth it. This game sucks. It's a shame, because the original Mario Bros. Game is super fun and addicting, but the physics change that they put in place here to make it feel more Luigi completely ruined the game. I can't control it for the life of me. The ice physics that they gave him and the high jump that just does not fit with the level design. Not to mention you fly way farther than comfortable every time you jump, so you'll inevitably slide right into the enemy and die before you can even start. Beyond that, and this sounds funny to say, but I think it's weird that all they changed was the sprite and the physics. Not that Luigi has many other identifying elements that aren't already associated with Mario as well, but it would have been fun if they had made a more Luigi-centric sequel of sorts, and tailored the game and levels to the new moveset they gave the sprite. This is an interesting novelty of a game, but the effort to get into it is not worth the end product. It's cool to know this exists, and that they had to incorporate the year Luigi into 3D World somehow, but I think we can all forget this happened and leave it as a cool Easter egg everyone forgets about. Have you played Luigi Brothers? How did you first stumble upon it? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe while you're down there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Hello and welcome back to Nintendo November Mario Edition, the month where I'm dedicating each week to one of Mario's many friends. This is the week of Luigi, and today we're looking at the seminal title in Luigi's career, Luigi's Mansion on the GameCube. Let's get started. Now, I'll get my bias out of the way at the start of the video. I would consider this one of my favorite games of all time. I grew up with games around with a PS2 and N64, but it wasn't until 2019 that I rediscovered how much I loved games and gaming, and one of the very first, if not the first, that I completed after giving this gaming thing another try was Luigi's Mansion. So needless to say, this game holds a special place in my heart. One of my favorite things about this game is the graphics and storyline. The GameCube era was Nintendo at its peak in my opinion, because it's games like this that Nintendo would never try to do again. Even the sequels to this game are watered down compared to how surreal, dark, and intimidating this mansion can be. There's just so much detail here that makes the mansion look lived in, and then further abandoned. The mood is actually dark and scary, which adds the extra layer when the bright and colorful Mario characters are put on top of it. That first moment when you crawl down the well and see that Mario is in the painting is such an amazing tone setter to the rest of the game. I'm convinced this controller was made for this game. Everything about this feels so intuitive. I love it when you get the direction of the C-stick just right and watch the ghost's health bar drain faster and faster as you chase it around the room. It's just so satisfying. The extremely clicky shoulder buttons make turning on the poltergust one of the best things to do, which is good considering it's the main thing you do in the game. This is somewhat related to the graphics, but big enough to mention as its own factor. The animations here for Luigi are so good. You can see the terror in his face and walk cycle, and I love how they managed to figure out how to make him move fast enough while also managing to put so much hesitation in his walk. You can see everything about his mood without having to speak a word, and there's an art in that. This extends out to the Resident Evil style door opening animations. They may feel unnecessary, but I think they add so much to the overall style and identity to the game, and didn't find them annoying at any point. The surrealism here is super interesting for a game in the Mario franchise. Things like the stargazing section, where one of Mario's lost items is in the walks amongst stars that you get through from a telescope, or the fact that you can transport back to the lobby by checking any mirror with the Game Boy Horror. There are just so many parts of this game that feels like something they would never do again, and from my experience, at least the second game, they haven't done since. I know at the time of this game's release, it got a lot of flack for not being a Mario launch title, but I can't begin to describe what a special place in my heart that this game holds, and coming back for this video to play it a third time just keeps reminding me of that fact. I wish Nintendo would go back to their more experimental and daring era of game making, because they really created some gems when they did. This will be one of those games I'm always down to go back to. Have you played the original Luigi's Mansion? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe while you're down there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Hello and welcome back to Nintendo November Mario Edition, the month where I'm dedicating each week to a different one of Mario's many friends. This is the week of Luigi, and today we're looking at the more divisive entries in his lineage, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. Let's get started. As I said yesterday, one of my favorite games of all time is the first Luigi's Mansion. So when I got a 3DS for the first time a couple years ago, one of the first games I wanted to pick up for it was Dark Moon. I had remembered when it came out, and I had barely heard anything about it, and I was so interested in playing it. However, at the time of the launch, I did not have a 3DS, and wouldn't for a while, but when I finally did, I didn't get very far in the game, before being wildly disappointed and giving up. Trying to play it again for this video, I felt the exact same way. I'll start with the positives when I say that this game looks phenomenal for a 3DS game. Both the cutscenes and the in-game models look so good. I actually can't believe how good this looks graphically for being on a handheld. With that though, I feel the ghosts in this game lost a lot of their character, being a lot more cartoony and not nearly as ghostly or scary. A lot of the tone is lost in this game, with all of the locations and ghosts being a lot cleaner and way less intimidating or scary. This is such a downgrade from the first game, which I think adds to how I don't want to play this game. Luigi's tone has also changed quite a bit, and loses so much of what made him great in the first game. In the first one, Luigi is terrified the whole time, and you can see it through every small body language aspect. In this game, they try to do the same thing, and in the opening cutscene they do, but then after that, he just becomes totally chill with everything and stops being scared practically at all. I get the idea of why they changed it to a mission-based structure, but I personally don't like it. It ruins so much of the flow of the game, and makes it so you can't ever really get acquainted with the map or start to learn your bearings, because you're not in any one place for long enough to bother. Which brings me to the point that I also don't like the idea of different mansions. It's a decent idea on paper, but I just really don't like it for the reason I said above, regarding getting used to the map. The first game, even though it had backtracking, at least had a really good flow through the mansion. There's also the idea of EGAD interrupting you at every corner. The first game worked because by and large you were on your own in terms of figuring out what to do and where to go. This game doesn't even allow you to take 2 steps before the DS rings off and EGAD tells you the obvious next steps that you were already heading to, and once again ruins the flow of the game. The one criticism that I know people have had that I personally don't agree with is the motion controls. Like, I get why people wouldn't be into it, but me personally, I found them non-intrusive. Not great by any means, but I personally didn't have any issues with them overall. I'd be curious to test out the new Switch port of this game that just came out. I was still playing on the 3DS for this one, and I wonder if the game would click better for me on a different platform. I don't think that'll be anytime soon, seeing as I've tried twice to like this game and failed, but maybe someday. Have you played Dark Moon? What did you think? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe while you're down there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Hello and welcome back to Nintendo November Mario Edition, the month where I'm dedicating each week to a different one of Mario's many friends. This is the week of Luigi, and we're rounding out our week with his most recent original title, Luigi's Mansion 3. Let's get started. Like Dark Moon yesterday, when I finally bought a Switch last year, one of the first games that I wanted on the list was Luigi's Mansion 3. I'm an enormous fan of this franchise, with the first game being one of my favorite games of all time. Although Dark Moon disappointed me, I knew that this game was much better received, so I was excited to play it when I finally got a Switch. This game fixed a lot of what I had issues with in Dark Moon, both gameplay and character-wise. The game is back to a free roam structure, which was so nice after the flow-breaking mission-based structure from the previous game. It was so nice to kind of create my own path again, and I really liked the use of the Polterpup as a non-intrusive tutorial guide, who at least at the beginning of the game does a really good job at showing you where you're supposed to be going while not hand-holding you and forcing you to go that way before you're ready. Yeah, there are still blocks in place at the beginning, but there's still a few non-story paths you can take for extra money and to mess around before continuing with the story. I also really liked the fix for Luigi in this game. They strike a happy medium of the absolute terror that he was in the first game, and the more determined Luigi from the last game. I love how he jumps at everything, and it affects your walk cycle for a few seconds afterwards. It's exactly the kind of stuff like that I loved so much from the first game. Similar to my issues with Dark Moon, I think the hotel leans too heavily into the bright and colorful cartoon aesthetic than anything even remotely creepy. Even after it transforms, the building is still really bright and none of the floors get anywhere near as surreal or creepy as the first game. This isn't to say I didn't like it though, I just wanted to see maybe a little bit more scare. The overall formula is great though, and I hope they keep going with this Luigi's Mansion style because everything else about it has only gotten better, including the controls are silky smooth. I absolutely adore the AoE fart attack that Luigi has, and the Poltergust has never felt more powerful to hold or use. This especially comes with an evolution of something from Dark Moon, which is when you hold on to a ghost long enough, you can hit A to absolutely suplex the ghost into the ground and make them easier to catch. This move is so incredibly satisfying, and it didn't matter how many ghosts I did it on, I felt just as powerful every time, no matter what. This is Luigi at his peak in terms of controls. I have no notes. Luigi's Mansion 3 is a lot of fun. There's still something special about the original Luigi's Mansion that I believe has been lost, but I fully support this direction as well, and I look forward to whatever they plan on doing next for this franchise, if there is a next. I'm happy to finally have taken a look at this trilogy together over the last couple days, and will continue to play them in the days to come. What did you think of Luigi's Mansion 3? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe while you're down there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.